A subscription business does not make its real money when you say yes. It makes it when nothing happens. The common myth is that subscriptions are designed around convenience. Low monthly price, one-click sign-up, cancel anytime. Simple. But if the model were really built around convenience, quitting would be as frictionless as joining. Look closely, and the pattern starts to look different. A free trial ends right after payday. A monthly charge is small enough to ignore. A yearly plan is cheap enough to justify. And the moment you stop noticing it, the system starts working exactly as intended. So the obvious question is, why not just charge more upfront and be honest about the real price? Because a large price gets judged. A small recurring price gets absorbed. That is the first trick, not hiding the number, but shrinking the moment you feel it. Think about the difference between carrying one heavy box and carrying a shopping bag every day. The box makes you stop and evaluate. The bag becomes part of your routine. That is how subscription pricing works. It turns a decision into background noise. And that still does not explain the real design choice. Because the monthly price is only half the system, the other half is memory. Most people assume companies want you to love the product so much that you never leave. Of course they want that. But many subscription models do not need constant enthusiasm. They just need low enough pain, low enough attention, and enough distance between the charge and the cancellation decision. That is why the best subscription price is often not the maximum you would pay. It is the amount you are least likely to interrupt. Too high and you cancel. Too low and the business leaves money on the table. But in the middle is a number that slips past review. A number that feels too small to investigate tonight and too annoying to deal with this week. And now the obvious fix sounds simple. Why not force companies to remind people more aggressively every month? Because that creates a new problem. The more often the system forces a fresh decision, the weaker the subscription model becomes. Recurring revenue works because the buying decision is not fully reopened every billing cycle. If customers had to consciously reapprove everything each month, many subscription businesses would stop behaving like subscriptions at all. That is the trade-off. The model is not optimized for one dramatic yes. It is optimized for the absence of a new no. This is why free trials, annual discounts, and default auto-renew all point in the same direction. Free trials get you past the first resistance. Annual plans reduce the number of cancellation windows. Auto-renew keeps the service alive without asking for renewed intent. Different tactics, same architecture. And once entire industries began valuing predictable recurring revenue, this stopped being a marketing trick and became a standard. Investors reward stable subscription income because it is easier to forecast. Companies prefer it because it smooths cash flow. Teams design around it because retention is worth more than one-time conversion spikes. So the pricing is not just about what you can afford. It is about what you are likely to leave unchallenged. That is the real payoff. Subscription pricing was not designed to be invisible by accident. It was designed to be forgettable on purpose. If you want more small things with big reasons, subscribe.